Give me a little. So welcome everyone, first of all, and this is the 26th of April, and I'm very looking forward to this talk at the Brighton Natural Health Centre. Right, can you all see this? Right, let's hope it doesn't disappear. Okay, can you all see my screen? Yeah, brilliant. Hi, I like to see faces. If you want to put your cameras on, it's nice. Anyone else is welcome, but please be aware that we are recording this and it might go on YouTube. So for the Brighton Natural Health Centre. So welcome. Today I'm going to talk about acid reflux, heartburn, indigestion, or GERD. A lot of people put these into the same category, although they are slightly different. But I'll explain a little bit more about that. Before we start, I need to have you read this. Please. So this information on this course is not intended to replace medication or advice from your GP, medical doctor or specialist, and is not intended as medical advice. It's a sharing of knowledge and information based on my training, research, and experience, and my work as a nutritional therapist and health coach. I encourage you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare. As long as everyone is clear with that, we'll go ahead. So my mission for today is to give you some clarity on the subjects of acid reflux, heartburn, indigestion, and GERD, and also to help you with some steps you can act on right now for immediate results, and also to give you some hope that you can live free of these symptoms. You'll see why, because basically pretty much all the causes of acid reflux are manageable and they're within your control, which you might not be aware of at this stage. And I will answer your questions at the end, so do keep those for the end if possible. But if there's a pressing question you have to ask, just raise your hand and turn on your microphone and I'll answer that straight away. Okay. So just a little bit of housekeeping. I'm not here to give you supplemental medication advice. I'm also not here to give you a proper diagnosis. I would need a lot more information for me to really give you that. This isn't a personal consultation. And if you do want that, I will offer you an opportunity to book a free consultation with me at the end. Who am I? And so I'm Nathalie Sansonetti, and I help women and men like you to get rid of their gut problems, not just acid reflux, I should say, to improve their moods, immunity, energy, and so that they can enjoy the normal and exciting things in their lives, and especially enjoy normal food. Why should you listen to me? I'm a fully qualified nutritional therapist, food allergy and intolerance therapist, EFT or emotional freedom technique practitioner, and certified health coach. I have close to 12 years experience helping hundreds of clients through one-to-one programs, retreats, conferences, talks, webinars now, all sorts of areas. Passionate about the healing powers of food for over 30 years. I started when I was an au pair, when I was 18 in America, and I was an au pair in a vegan family. And I'm going to show my age now, but in 86, I had no idea what vegan meant and was, and I was completely mind blown when I was 18 by following the vegan way of eating for a year. I'm not a vegan anymore, but it just opened my eyes to the amazing power of food and the amazing healing power of food, which I've been studying and researching and experimenting with. ever since. So I'm completely passionate and crazy about anything to do with nutrition and health. I'm also a mom of 2 teenage boys, and I have worked in the corporate world for years. I did work for years in the corporate world. So I know a thing or two about, time constraints and all sorts of obstacles to good health. So now let's talk about acid reflux, which is what you're here for. And first of all, a few statistics which will give you, probably open your eyes to the fact that you are not alone. Heartburn and acid reflux affect about 25% of the UK population. That's a quarter of the population. Millions of people in this country suffer from it. And it's actually 33% of people in the West. So that's even higher generally in the West. GERD, which is repetitive acid reflux, basically, to put it simply, is the most common digestive disorder in the US, number 1. And it affects at least 20% of the population weekly. And it's common in women and men from 25 to 74 years old. So pretty much everyone. And you'll see why in a moment when I talk about the causes of it. So this is like Mark, who you probably can't see this at all. Right, so Mark had incredibly painful gut issues when he came to see me. He had lots of bloating, constipation, diarrhea, a right mix of IBS symptoms, and he was on omeprazole for a long, long time. After working with me for a few months, he felt in charge of his diet and his life, less tired. He knew what to avoid and what he could ingest without rejection. It turned his life around. Turned his life around from an ongoing inconvenience that cost him days off work, missed evenings out, general lethargy, and poor quality of life. And he just did amazingly. He was very, very good at following instructions and did amazingly well. So there you go. You can have a little bit of hope already. But let's talk about the symptoms of acid reflux to make sure you understand, and you're probably suffering yourself. So first of all, you most likely have burning in the throat, sometimes in the chest. I've had clients actually go to A&E thinking they were having a heart attack, because you can get very, very strong burning pains in the chest and the left side as well of the left arm, which are also common symptoms for a heart attack. So it's very common to think you're having a heart attack. Food or acid coming up the esophagus. You might get cough and inflammation of the throat. For some reason, well, it's quite obvious why, but I do have quite a few singing teachers and people who speak in public and who have a cough, who come to me because they can't do their job, basically because of inflammation and pain and coughs and very husky voice as well. That's a very common symptom. You might also get asthma symptoms, especially if food tends to go into the lungs when it comes up through the esophagus. You might have difficulty swallowing, which is slightly more advanced in the case of acid reflux. If your symptoms start becoming difficult and advanced, then you might feel that you can't swallow very well. So the consequences, some common and long-term consequences of untreated acid reflux. First, you might not be able to sleep properly, which is going to cause chronic fatigue. And chronic fatigue, unfortunately, will cause you to usually make the wrong food choices the next day, or drink more coffee, or Diet Coke, or have lots of starch and lots of sugar, which are all causes of acid reflux, or at least they are all triggers of acid reflux as well. So sleep deprivation is never a good idea. Second one, you might get the burning in the chest, which increases and again gives you those symptoms of a heart attack. You might get ulceration at the base of the esophagus, some bleeding, inflammation of the esophagus, which is very common when you've had acid reflux for a long time. You might get respiratory problems. Like I mentioned, asthma before. You might have, pieces of food or acid going into the lungs, which will be very painful and really annoying when you're trying to breathe, obviously. Then you might have difficulty swallowing because of the inflammation in the esophagus. This is why this is more advanced in acid reflux. And if that happens, then you might have nutrient depletion, obviously, because you can't really eat very well. You lose your appetite. You're going to start losing weight, but not in a nice way. You might suffer from anemia, low iron, and your immunity might be weak after that. You might get Barrett's esophagus, which is inflammation and change of the nature of the base of the esophagus. And that, unfortunately, often leads to esophageal cancer, which is, unfortunately, in the long term, one of the long-term consequences of untreated acid reflux. And a lot of people, in fact, you double your chances when you have acid reflux of having IBS symptoms, because the causes for acid reflux, and we'll see what these are in a minute, are very often the same causes that IBS sufferers suffer from. Like Marie as well. So she was a teacher, a singing teacher, and she still is. And she finished in March working with me. Before working with me, she suffered from reflux for years, which affected her singing and speaking voice. And she had massive anxiety due to it, because obviously her work, depending on it, she was already looking at various other avenues for her, or other careers that she might do. And she was just getting really low and depressed, actually, at the idea of having to change careers because of this. So acid reflux is no, laughing matter, because it can affect you at a very, very deep level in your entire life. She was also getting very, very, let's say, annoyed and impatient with her family. So it was affecting family life a lot. After working with me for 8 weeks only, her acid reflux improved massively. She regained her speaking voice and singing voice, and basically went off the reflux medication, which is why she started working with me in the first place. She wanted to get off those, but in a natural way. So here are some causes of acid reflux, and I said I was going to bust some myths here. And one of the top myths that are used even in the marketing of the PPIs and antacids and all medication is that you have too much acid and therefore you need to stop the acid by taking those medications. The problem is it's actually not caused by too much acid, but it's caused by too low stomach acid. Okay, I'll repeat. Your acid reflux is not caused by too much acid. It's caused by you having too little gastric acid. And also lower esophageal sphincter dysfunction, or LES or LOS for short. I'm French, so I don't like these long words. So LES is dysfunction of the lower esophagus, which basically means the bottom of your esophagus has a valve, which then becomes looser, let's put it that way, which lets in anything that comes up from the stomach, and it will just open for any acid or any food coming up. But the reason most people, and that's 90% of people, up to 90% of people who have acid reflux, have too little gastric acid. This is what happens. This is why it feels like you have a lot of acid going up. When you have low gastric acid, which is one of the acids that you need in order to break down your food as soon as you swallow it and it goes inside your stomach, is that it slows digestion. Because if you don't have acid in there, the food just sits there in your stomach. And that's why you probably feel like you're full all the time, or you feel bloated right around the rib area as soon as you've eaten. You might feel, very bloated and gassy over there. That's because when the food sits there, instead of being broken down and moving on to the rest of the GI tract, there's a lot of bacteria. It sits there and ferments, and a lot of bacteria will start growing and overgrowing. And these are nasty bacteria. This isn't a place where bacteria should be overgrown. Bacteria should stay down in the lower colon, in the lower, digestive tract. So bacterial overgrowth will cause a lot of gases. Yeah, so the gas is going to create a lot of pressure, which is IAP, intra-abdominal pressure. And that pressure is going to push the food and the little acid you've got in there up towards the esophagus. And because the lower esophagus, like I said, is often very, very loose, it's going to let the food and the acids go up into your throat and into the rest of your esophagus. So this is what happens for most people with acid reflux. Okay, this isn't a one-off. This is for most people. So if you suffer from this, this is the reason why. So again, I was going to show a little drawing of this. You've got low stomach acid, which causes your digestion to slow down. Bacterial overgrowth, you also get carbohydrates or sugars, which are basically sitting there undigested. All of this will create a lot of gas, which then increases the pressure upwards towards your esophagus, which then weakens also the more acid, or the little acid you've got there, and the more food gets pushed against the valve, the looser it becomes, and the more you're likely to get heartburn, GERD, and acid reflux. So here are some causes of low gastric acid, which is also called hypochloridria. The first one is age. Unfortunately, we can't change that one, but you'll see that the other ones, you can change every single one of them. Long-term use of acid-lowering medication. So I'm talking omeprazole, PPIs, antacids, Rennies, all of those over-the-counter, and even the medication you get from your doctor. These are not meant for long-term use. They were never meant for long-term use. And if you look at the little leaflet inside the box, it will say exactly that. They are not meant for long-term use, because what they do is that they stop the production, your natural production of acid in there, of that gastric acid you do need in order to break down and digest the food. Okay, you do need the acid in order to break down and digest the food. So acid is your friend. So when you take that medication, it will slow down, it will reduce the acidic feeling that you get at the base of your esophagus, because there's always a little bit of acid there. But also it stops you generally, from producing the acid. So not a good idea. Stress is a major cause of hypochloridria. The fight or flight and freeze response is meant to stop your digestion, because the digestive system actually uses the most energy of your entire body. It's the one when it's trying to digest food and to transform that food into nutrients and transport it and direct it everywhere into your body, that uses up so much energy that when you are facing stress, your brain knows to switch it off, because it knows you're going to need to fight or flight. Okay, so stress is a major one, and this is why I'm going to give you some tips around that as well in a minute. Okay, infections, H. pylori. If you've had H. pylori, that's a good reason why you might be low on gastric acid, but again, that's reversible and that's treatable as well. So the inflammation that infections will give are definitely treatable. High carbohydrates and sugary diets, yeah, you know, if you're guilty of that one, you will know. The timing of food and drink is important, and when you stay on this call, on this presentation, at the end, I'm going to give you a little cheat sheet which has my top tips for acid reflux. And I talk in there about the timing of food and drink. But I can already tell you, if you're drinking during a meal, that's really not recommended. You need to drink up to about 10 minutes before a meal. Take note of that. And after you've eaten, you need to wait about an hour before you eat, before you drink again. The reason for that is, when you go back to the idea of the IAP, the intra-abdominal pressure, if you add a lot of fluids in there, the pressure is just going to be even bigger. It's going to increase the pressure in your abdomen, in your stomach, and that's going to give you even more problems. So do avoid the drinks at the same time. Eating habits, how you eat is major. Another really, really huge reason. So for example, chewing. Are you a fast eater? Most people with acid reflux usually are. So if you are a fast eater, it's simple. Slow down and chew your food properly. Okay, the reason you need to chew your food properly is because inside your mouth, there's enzymes inside the saliva. And if you chew your food properly, you expand the surface of the food to be in contact with more of those enzymes. Okay, so as it gets in contact with the enzymes start breaking down that food already in the mouth. And then it goes into the stomach already pre-broken down. So it's a lot easier in your stomach for the gastric acid, whatever gastric acid you've got in there, to actually start breaking down whatever needs to be done in there. Okay, so chewing and slowing down are major pillars of the program that I use when I work with people. Some of the causes of the sphincter at the base, the valve at the base of the esophagus, why does it get loose? Why is there a distension there sometimes? Overeating or obesity. So if you overeat, your stomach is going to push the content upwards, and that's going to push against the valve at the base of your esophagus. Obesity is going to be a major cause as well. Some medication are really not great for that problem as well. Again, PPIs, but also sedatives. Some supplements are not going to be great. If you take iron on a regular basis, you might find that your acid reflux has gone way up. So there are certain things, certain medications and supplements which actually don't work well with acid reflux. Alcohol, unfortunately, is a big one for trigger food or trigger of LES, smoking. High carbs, sugary food, again, is not going to be your friend. And other trigger foods. So IAP, which is intra-abdominal pressure, and acid reflux are also caused by obesity and overweight. Again, if you eat too much, and it's not going to help with the production of gastric acid usually, and overeating is going to push again. And posture. If you eat really crunched up and you can see where your stomach is between your ribs, obviously that's going to squash the food in, and you're more likely to have reflux when that happens. And again, how you eat is huge. Okay, what you eat are your trigger foods. So this is why you need to find out what your trigger foods are. Most of the people I work with, in fact, pretty much everyone I work with, always know what their trigger foods are. Okay, you probably know as well. And if you put in the chat, actually, it will be interesting to see what your trigger foods are. I can't see the chat right now, but I'll have a look afterwards. But let me know what your trigger foods are, because they're usually sugars and carbs. Okay, and carbs, we're talking about grains, some grains, not all carbs, but most carbs and sugars. And tomatoes, by the way, carbs, there's also pulses that can cause a lot of problems with acid reflux. Tomatoes are a big one, and citrus fruit as well. Fried foods, obviously, that's a given, and dairy foods, any dairy, and usually coffee. Very often coffee is going to be a problem, but also tea and generally caffeine. That's very common also as a trigger food. Alcohol and gluten. These are your major trigger foods. When I work with people, though, I don't tell them to get rid of all of these, because usually, and it might be the case for you, you might be triggered by a few of these, but not all of them. And also, we always work to find out how much of each of these foods or drinks you're able to tolerate before you actually get the problem. Okay, so I'm not a big supporter of eliminating everything and causing you a lot of stress, because stress is a major cause of acid reflux, isn't it? So that's not going to work either. So it's really about knowing yourself and knowing exactly which foods are your trigger foods, but also how much of each one you're able to tolerate before you get a problem. And also, if you know, for example, that alcohol and gluten and fried foods are your trigger foods, obviously don't have these together. Okay, so sometimes separating them is going to make a massive difference. Oh, I can see the chats. Let me double check. So, okay. Fish and chips, yeah, definitely. Chocolate, yes. Tomato, fizzy drinks. Chocolates is usually the sugar in it. Fizzy drinks are usually a no-no. Yeah. I know your favorite, red wine and fried foods. Yeah, so I would avoid the fish and chips with the red wine then, Lou. It might be a good idea. So some tips which you could use straight away. First, you need to identify your triggers. So what I would suggest is, when you know your triggers already, again, try and eat or have these foods very, very seldom. And when you do have them, make sure the other sides of the other tips are basically taken care of. So how you eat, make sure you're drinking and chewing really well, that you're not drinking during your meals. If you want a bit of wine, have it before your meal or after your meal. I know it's nice to have a bit of red wine with your meal, but you might have to pay for it. Having said that, if you're having a proper meal, probably a lighter and simpler meal to digest, you might get away with having a little bit of alcohol here and there. But it's really about identifying your triggers, taking notes, put everything into a notebook whenever, maybe just do that over a week, put it down on paper, and then you'll see a pattern. If you look at it over and over again, you'll see, okay, I had it really bad on that day. This is what I had for dinner. I had it really bad on that day. This is what I had as a snack or whatever. So it's really worth looking into what you're actually eating. How you eat, again, this is major. In fact, if there's one thing I said to all my clients that I've said for the past 11 years, it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat it that's important. It's actually more important, I would even say, than what you eat. Because believe me, when you eat a little bit of, say, fish and chips, okay, I'm not encouraging you to have fish and chips all the time or anything, but if you wanted a little treat once in a while, nothing wrong with a fish and chips once in a while. Eat it really slowly. Make sure you eat slowly and you chew really well and you take your time and really appreciate it and, smell it and look at it and take pictures and put them on your Facebook page, whatever, but just really appreciate it, because it's how you eat that's going to ensure that your gastric juices are fully there and digesting properly. Okay, don't eat a fish and chips if you're standing outside the curb waiting for a taxi to take you partying, or stressed out in front of your screen at work. That's not going to work, is it? So how you eat is super important. So chewing, posture, make sure you're standing upright. In fact, it also applies to how you sleep. When you're sleeping and you've just had a meal, in fact, I would say never fall asleep or never go to sleep within 3 hours of a meal, because you're going to need to raise your head in your bed. Otherwise, everything might come up. And then slow down your eating. Really, really important. Mindful eating. I used to do a lot of detox retreats. I used to cook and do all the workshops and talks about nutrition during those detox yoga retreats. And one thing I always did with the participants was give them a really nice big green smoothie for breakfast, and I would change one ingredient every day, and I would ask them to drink that in silence for 15 to 20 minutes, and I'd put the timer on, and they had to guess the extra ingredient that changed that day. So it makes you really notice, the smells and the textures and everything, that you're putting into your body, and it makes you really appreciate what's in there as well. In fact, you might find that when you slow down and chew really well, you might find that fish and chips isn't actually that appealing, and you'll feel a bit put off probably after a few bites. So mindful eating and slowing down is also a great way of stopping you from overeating. So this is really important again. I know you know these things, so make sure you do them. Is this you also? Are you juggling work, babies, everything, social media, exercise, everything? Okay, so stress is a major one. Like I explained, it's the one reason why we're getting ill generally. I would say stress is the silent killer of our generations, and there's so much we can do to lower its impact, so much. So for example, you could do yoga, qigong, tai chi, anything that slows you down, that relaxes you, that puts you into your body. A lot of people tell me, oh, but I exercise to relax. Yes, but first of all, exercising or running when you have acid reflux, you're talking up and down movement, that's not going to help you, is it? And also, when you're pushing your body too hard, it might also cause a lot of stress on your body. Just remember that stress is not what you think is stress, it's what your brain perceives as stress. And this is really important. If your brain thinks, actually, this person is running, she's been running for 2 hours, my God, there must be a massive bear running after her or dinosaur or something, let's switch off everything. Yeah, because the digestive system is not the only thing that gets switched off. The reproductive area also gets switched off, because you're not going to mate when there's a massive danger. So make sure that what you do to relax is definitely something that your brain is going to say, oh yeah, that's relaxing, that's brilliant. Is yoga, qigong, tai chi, all of these things, is that slowing down your breathing? Is it slowing down your body? Tick. Then yes. Meditation, yeah, even 5 minutes. Start at 5 minutes. Listen to meditation apps, whichever way you do it. You could meditate while you're doing the dishes or while you're eating mindfully. Yeah, you could meditate on the food you're eating. Meditation or prayer as well. A lot of people pray. That works as meditation. Deep breathing, I'm going to give you a little exercise in a minute. That's going to make a massive difference as well. Deep breathing is the number one way that you can tell your brain that you're not stressed, okay? Because what are the signals of stress for your brain? Your pupils dilate, your heart rate goes up, your blood sugar goes up, your breathing usually gets shallower and shallower. Sometimes you hold your breath even. So your levels of oxygens go down, and a few other symptoms. Yeah. So deep breathing, you cannot be stressed if you're deeply breathing, right? It just doesn't go together. So if you're deeply breathing, you're telling your brain, you see, I'm not stressed, I'm relaxed. So switch on the kitchen. Yeah. Switch on the gastric acid and the enzymes. I'm ready to digest. So this is really, really essential, and it's a massive pillar of what I do. It's a massive part of what I do with my clients. Movement instead of exercise. Again, movement is absolutely essential for the human body. We're not meant to sit for very long. So move move, go around, you know, take an extra stop before your bus stop, or walk around, just do anything you can, you know, stand up and twirl around when you're on your computer all day. Do anything that you can to move your body. That's going to help with the peristalsis, which is the movement inside your gut. It will help the muscles of your digestive tract to move the food down and move the stools out as well. It will help with your elimination of the stools. Nature, connecting with nature, great way to relax, because you're moving as well. Talking therapy, you know, if you have issues that are stressing you or anxiety, go for it. And any others, if you have other ways of relaxing, and, you know, please share them in the chat, because a lot of people could benefit from, you know, what you find is relaxing. I like sea swimming. That's relaxing. I think so anyway. A lot of people will think it's very stressful because I'm crazy, but I think it's very relaxing. Any fellow swimmers here, actually, if you could put in the chat. So here is my number one top tip for gut stress. And this is a breathing exercise, which I give to everyone who works with me. I make them do it 5 times a day. So once before eating, so 3 times, once before each meal, and once before getting out of bed, once before going to sleep. Let me see on the chat what people have answered. Swimming in the sea, yeah, Rachel. And Darren, yay. Good on you. Very relaxing, very, yeah, anyway, I won't go on about it. You know what it's like. So let's do this little breathing exercise. You've seen Mark's testimonial in the very beginning. I contacted him again recently to see how he was doing in the lockdowns and all. And he said this little exercise absolutely saved his life. He also had massive problems with flying in airplanes, and his job took him to Denmark every 2 weeks. He had to spend 2 weeks in Denmark and then back here 2 weeks and then 2 weeks in Denmark. Nightmare for someone who doesn't like flying. He said this breathing exercise just saved his life for that as well. So please put your hands on your belly. We're going to do this together, and you'll see that it's very, very quick. It doesn't take long, and it's so easy to do. Start with your hands on your belly, and please close your eyes. Mix it deeper. And then you can really focus on your insides. And then breathe in through your nose. We're just going to do 5 breaths. So breathing through your nose, feel your belly inflate as you breathe in all the way into your hands on your belly. Hold it at the top for a few seconds. And then breathe out through your mouth. Really relax your shoulders and feel your belly deflating. And you can push with your hands slightly, but don't crunch up your shoulders. Okay, breathe in again immediately through your nose. Hold it at the top for a few seconds and breathe out through your mouth very slowly and feel the air come out of your belly. Great. Now breathe in again through your nose. Hold it at the top a few seconds and breathe out through the mouth. And you can sigh out, you know, any stress, any darkness. Get rid of it from your gut. And then breathe in through your nose. Breathe in light, healing light, for example. And breathe out through your mouth. And the last one, breathe in through your nose. Hold it. Hold it. Hold it some more. And breathe out through your mouth. Great. And open your eyes. Now you can do this standing up even when you're in your car. I sometimes do it automatically when I'm driving and I'm getting stressed because I'm usually late somewhere. And I just start breathing through my belly without even noticing it. The belly breathing is actually how babies usually breathe. If you look at a baby asleep, you'll see that bellies go up and down. And if you were to drop a baby, even, don't try this at home, but if you were to drop a baby, they're very floppy, they're so relaxed. Yeah, they don't kind of tense up when you drop them. And this is why, because they breathe through their bellies. So belly breathing is absolutely a lifesaver, and it really helps to unknot whatever knots you've got in there. If you get, the load of bloating and pain and cramping, really, you can't do anything better than that. Repeat 5 times, 5 breaths, no more than 5 breaths, because you can get quite dizzy if you do more and even faint. And 5 times a day, but the minimum, the bare minimum, try and do it before each meal. This is really important. It's something I keep my clients very accountable with. Okay. So, do you need help? I have a one-to-one program, which is over 8 weeks, which includes 6 one-to-one coaching sessions with me. And we talk about food, we talk about your stress levels, we talk about tips on lifestyle, on whatever is stressing you. We talk about, how to change your environment so that you are completely immune to the stress, so that it doesn't affect your gut, so it doesn't affect your ability to produce gastric acid, because that's what this is all about. If you don't have gastric acid in your stomach, you are not going to be able to have proper digestion. So you're likely to have acid reflux, you're likely to have bloat, you're likely to have erratic bowel movements, you're likely to have IBS, Crohn's, diverticulitis. All of these things depend on the right production levels of gastric acid and enzymes, plus other things. But it's the basis of good, proper digestion. So this is what I talk about in my one-to-one step-by-step program, which really works. I've treated hundreds of people with it, and it really works. You get continuous support through WhatsApp, through the one-to-one sessions, first of all, on Zoom, but also through WhatsApp if you have any questions. I have people send me pictures from Tesco saying, should I get this brand of coconut yogurt or that one? Or, should have a look at my meal. Is this big enough, or is it too small, the portion size, or whatever? And please be sure, I do not diet. I don't encourage people to diet. I don't talk about calories. I don't ask you to weigh your food or anything like that, or even weigh yourself. That's not at all part of the program. And a lot of people who have acid reflux and really bad gastric acid also very often are overweight. And that's one of the side effects of having proper digestion, is that you just drop the weight if you need it, if you need to, without any effort. So that's a nice side effect for most people who come to me. But I don't deal with weight loss. It's a symptom, weight loss, of an imbalance in other areas of your body. And you get a weekly call, which is going to give you accountability, so you can get away with it. I'm your nice, gentle, lovely kick in the butt whenever and wherever needed. So that's why it works so well. And I give you guidance on food, supplements, how to eat, how to reduce stress, etc., etc. I also cover movement. I also used to do a lot of athlete nutrition for elite athletes, so I know a lot. If you're into your exercise, I know a lot about that, and what to eat and when and how and things like that. And sleep as well, which is major for healing. So this is Sue. She had a constant lump in her throat. She was a head nurse. She is a head nurse in a surgery, so lots of stress. We did a lot of work with her on the stress levels. And she had a constant lump in her throat, acid reflux for years. After 8 weeks, it stopped. She was completely off medication. She felt more in charge of her life and her emotions and stress because she needed to. And that had a massive impact on her gut as well. Next step, you can book a free consultation with me to discuss your gut health issues, your health goals, and how you can achieve them. And I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to put this little link as well in the chat, so you can book something if you want to. And I've cleared my diary for that if you'd like to. So this is the link. You can copy and paste. You can also email me on this address if you'd like to talk to me or book a little consultation as well. And this is my website. You can see loads of testimonials and tips. I also have a blog on that, so you can have a look at tips for food. There's recipes, there's lots of things. And I also have a support page on Facebook, which is called Gut Loving Life, which gives more tips and recipes and, you know, lots of help, anything to do with gut. So here we are. Nice to see all of you. You haven't gone to sleep. That's great. Still a few people watching. Yay! I couldn't see you while I was presenting, so this is good. Right. Anyone with any questions so far? And feel free to unmute yourself. You can, otherwise you can type them in the chat. If you don't want to talk, you know, if you want it to be anonymous, you can put it in the chat directly to me if you want to keep it, and I won't mention your name. Yeah, Darren?
Hi, Nathalie. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
You mentioned kind of you're not keen on supplements or and certainly not medications.
Yeah.
I wonder what your stance is on bicarbonate. It's something that I've been adding to acidic foods as I'm cooking them, and for me that helps with like something like tomato or so. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, or the long-term effects of that on acid production.
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I'm not against supplements. I think some supplements have a place to play, definitely. And someone also mentioned my views on digestive enzymes. So I'll just go quickly on to that as well, because it's within the same thing. Digestive enzymes are like a crutch, okay? They're great when you're not producing enough enzymes. They're great to help at the beginning of your program, you know, on a short-term basis, but eventually they won't work anymore, just like the bicarbonate that you're talking about. Eventually, if your problem at the basis of the story is that you're not producing enough gastric acid or enzymes, it's just not going to replace it in the long run. So no, unfortunately, there's no magic pill or product that's going to stop you from having to do the work around, you know, finding your trigger foods, avoiding them as much as possible, finding the foods that you can have instead, or sometimes also it's just a matter of knowing how to cook those trigger foods, which make a massive difference as well. You know, I'm talking about tomatoes and pulses and things like that, for example. So it's, you know, it takes work, unfortunately. That's just the way it is, but it's all very, very rewarding at the end, because a lot of things, not just your gastric acid, but a lot of things will start working much, much better in your body, including your mind, your clarity of mind, and everything will be transformed as well. So digestive enzymes, bicarbonate, sometimes it can help a little bit, but eventually you're going to have to do the work. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, great. So Karen said the menopause seems to have given me acid reflux, so don't have it all the time. Yes, hormone levels can definitely trigger gut changes. The hormone, you know, the thyroid and the gut and the liver and all of that is all connected. I don't look at a person as just a gut. I look at a person as a whole. And when I treat someone, I have to look at other areas that need rebalancing and support. So it does affect a lot of women around the menopause and perimenopausal as well. Also, we're talking about sometimes a lot of women going through the menopause have a lot of stress because of the menopause also. And that, as I said before, stress is a major cause of gastric issues. So you might want to look at, and I have a lot of menopausal ladies that I work with. And when we work together, we look at how they view their menopause as well. Is it something that's causing them stress and distress? Or is it something they're just accepting and it's fine? And very often there's a bit of, there's some negative thoughts around that as well. So Lou mentioned silent reflux and only showed sinus problems for a year before specialists put two and two together. Yeah, silent reflux is basically when you have the gastric acid, or you have the symptoms, but because it's not yet destroyed or damaged the base of the esophagus, you don't really get the acid to start with, but eventually you do. And that's when, unfortunately, that's when you start having problems. Yeah, and sinus symptoms, I mean, the whole, ears, nose, and throats are connected anyway. So it will have a connection. It will have an impact sometimes in the ears. Tinnitus is a common symptom as well. I've had quite a few people work with me who had vertigo problems and tinnitus, and I just worked with someone who had Meniere's disease, and she kept fainting and losing balance all the time. All of these are definitely can be related, not always, but they're very often related. Okay, so Denise, I think the best way is to contact me through either email or private just book a consultation with me, and then we'll discuss all of that, if that's okay. You also have IBS here and thyroid medicine. No problem, Karen. Yeah, IBS, like I said, you're doubling, if not tripling, your chances of having IBS and other more serious gut problems if you have low gastric acid, because it's the same cause. It's the same problem. IBS is basically, and don't get me wrong, everyone is diagnosed as having IBS these days, and it's the kind of, oh, you've got IBS, just shut up, go home. It's kind of seen that way very often, unfortunately. I get loads of people who say, yeah, I've been diagnosed with IBS, but half the time I'll say, no, you don't have IBS. You're only very constipated, or you have this or that. But IBS, I would see as having a mixture of constipation and diarrhea, different, you might go from one to the other, and a lot of cramping, usually quite painful, discomfort, lots of bloat, but it's really a mixture of constipation and diarrhea. That's more likely to be IBS. If you're just constantly constipated, that's constipation. Okay, so we need to treat that. If you have constant diarrhea, there's something else going on. So you need to find out exactly, and that's what I do as well. Is there a link between acid reflux, digestive issues after you've had your gallbladder removed? Absolutely, absolutely. The gallbladder is your bile storage in the digestive system. And when they take out the gallbladder, unfortunately, the bile will keep dripping into the rest of your digestive system. So it can cause a lot of burning and bloat and IBS symptoms as well. So I have quite a few gallbladder people who've had their gallbladder removed who come to me. There are certain, unfortunately, with the gallbladder, there are certain supplements that you might have to be on for life, which can help massively. But because you've had the gallbladder removed, sometimes you just have to. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. But there are lots of other things you can do as well, apart from supplements. So definitely get in touch. Pat, so you're very welcome. Thank you for your advice. Yes, Barrett's esophagus. Yeah. Yes, raise your bed at the head. It does help. Yeah. Barrett syndrome, you do need to have more investigation, because yeah, you need to see how far it's gone and how serious it is. But yeah, it's better to have more investigation into that. Did you have sinus problems? Very common. Yeah. Sinus problems, just so you know, as a heads up, can be very often caused also by a dairy intolerance, without you knowing. And I would definitely cut out dairy from your diet, everyone, if you have any digestive issues. And I would go as far as saying, do you have a little tail behind your back and 2 little ears? If you do, then drink milk. If you don't, avoid it. It's, to put it mildly, milk is just so difficult to digest. So difficult to digest for pretty much everyone. Certain ethnic groups also have even more difficulty, especially because it's not generally like in the African diet, it's not much in the Asian diet either. So, and strangely enough, they have a lot less digestive issues than we do. So yeah, it's not a good idea. So sinus problems, mucus problems generally, you want to get rid of mucus forming dairy from any dairy. Hyotosonia, yes. So hyotosonia is basically, oh yeah, sorry, I can't see who's talking. Anyone?
Can I ask a question? It's Sue.
Yes, Sue. Yes, Sue. Yeah.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Sue, go ahead.
Can you tell me? Thank you. Can you tell me if a sort of a lemony, salty taste in the mouth all the time, which affects the flavour of, well, makes food taste really unpleasant and sometimes metallic and bitter? Can you shed any light as to whether that's part of acid reflux as well, please?
Absolutely, it could be. I mean, acid reflux, usually it's more acidic, but some people get a metallic taste as well. And some people will get a sort of acidic. So if you mean lemony if you mean that it's acidic in your mouth, that can be it. The salty taste is also, it could be from some of the food traveling upwards, which gives you a bit of the funny taste in your mouth. Any funny taste in the mouth usually comes from the esophagus anyway, usually. Yeah, not always, but very often. If you have, do you get burning as well and things like that? Or
I used to, not so much now, but
yeah,
I used to.
Yeah.
It's just the taste.
Yeah, so I would follow, try and follow the advice I've given, and yeah, if you need any help, just contact me. But it could be very much acid reflux. Hyotosonia, yes, a lot of people with sorry, yes, you're welcome. Yes, hyotosonia, there's a lot of people with acid reflux have hyotosonia, which is basically where the valve of the esophagus, at the base of the esophagus, it basically opens. So it's at the top of the stomach. There's a valve which will then let the food or acid go up the passage up into the esophagus. So yeah, I mean, anything you do to reduce the pressure in your stomach, and remember that the IAP, the intra-abdominal pressure, is caused by the food sitting there fermenting, causing loss of gas, or when you're eating too much and then it presses upwards, that's going to give you problems. So unfortunately with hyotosonia, I don't believe it can reseal itself by itself, but you can reduce the discomfort of having it, and you can reduce the pressure and the acid reflux that you get because of it by controlling what you're eating, how much and how you're eating it. But you can also have a little bit of surgery, but the surgery will not replace bad habits or naughty eating. You know, it's just not a solution long term. It's gonna come back. Whatever you do to try and fix, it's just gonna come back. So you still need to continue to whatever you need to do to increase your gastric acids and enzymes and make sure that you're digesting properly first. You'd love to stop medication. I'm not allowed to tell you to stop your medication. But when people work with me, I'm allowed to say that pretty much everyone I work with will stop their medication on their own. And I never tell them, and I never tell anyone to stop their medication, but they usually contact me for that reason. And everyone does, and don't go back on it. They never go back on it. So that's just the way it is. Yeah. Do you think fermented foods like kombucha is helpful? It can make the tummy feel fizzy. Yeah, because kombucha is a natural fizzy drink. So, you know, the fermentation in there might actually cause more fermentation and problems with some people. Just like, you know, sauerkraut might do. All the fermented foods might be a problem with some people. So they wouldn't be the first foods that I would recommend for people to have. All these fermented foods, you know, which are great, they give prebiotics, which feeds the good bacteria in your gut. They also feed the nasty bacteria in your stomach. So you need to be careful not to eat too many prebiotics or fermented foods, or you're going to make your problems in the stomach even worse. You're going to increase the level of gas and fermentation in your digestive system. So make sure that you digest quickly, first of all, and that you don't get the acid reflux. That's usually a good sign. If you still get bloated in your lower abdomen around your navel area, that's the colon, and that's the part that needs the fermented foods. Okay, but not at the top. So if you've got problems with acid reflux, that means the stomach, which is at the top of your digestive tract, is going to be a problem. It's going to be full of not very nice bacteria. So you need to get rid of that first. Okay. Yes. Hyperactive bowel. Yes. It can. Yes. Definitely be a hyperactive bowel can be a possible sign of GERD, because it just means, you know, there's something wrong in your digestion, and 9 times out of 10 it's that you're not producing enough gastric acids or enzymes. And also it can be a case of masses of stress and anxiety to do with that. So people I've had with hyperactive bowels usually have problems with anxiety and stress, and that's what we have to deal with and work on a lot. But it can also, because of the initial reason for it, which is the stress is causing you to have low gastric acid, it's all interlinked anyway. So I never work with anyone without talking and you know, dealing with stress and anxiety. Even when people, especially when people come to me and say, I don't have any stress, I don't have any anxiety, I have diarrhea every day, or I have IBS, I've had it for 20 years, but I don't have any stress. Sorry to be flippant, but it has to be there. You're probably not aware of it, but it has to be there. With gut issues, there has to be some. And it's not that your levels of stress are very high, it's just that your ability to cope with it have either gotten worse, or, you know, something happened to make it that you're not coping with it at the moment. Yeah. Okay, yeast. What's the question about yeast? Can you be a bit more specific? And do I think there's a link between digestive issues and trauma in early life? Absolutely. Yeah. And when I work with people, we usually try and pinpoint when it started. You know, it's part of the investigation. When did you start getting those problems? You know, did it start when you were little? What happened when you were little? You know, and if you gain my trust and if you are, you know, open to discussing this, then we talk about that and we try and resolve that a little bit. I'm not a counselor, but we can do a lot around that to help out. And it could be that I advise you to go and see a counselor or someone who will deal with trauma with you. Yeah. So beer and bread, yes, absolutely. Yeast in beer and bread, yeah, not great. And also if you suffer from gluten, you're going to have gluten in there as well. So the yeast is not going to be a good idea either. Yeast is more to do with candida, as you've probably heard. So candida can be, you know, a problem, and it's quite difficult for some to get rid of, and it can take a long time to get rid of it. Yeah, so bread and beer will definitely be a no-no on your list of foods. Any questions specific to that? If you wanted some help on that. Any other questions? We've got about 5 more minutes. Avoiding the beer and the bread, yeah, unfortunately, at least for a while. When I work with people, we usually, you know, that's why my programs are usually 8 weeks long, because it takes about 6 weeks to get rid of a substance in the gut that's going to cause problems. Most of the time, we'll usually get rid of the gluten and the dairy, but not always. Some bits of dairy might be okay if you really, really absolutely cannot give up your cheese, for example. There might be some types of dairy that you're able to tolerate, but it might slow down your progress. That's the only thing. And then, yes, this is where it's 8 weeks again. So 6 weeks we eliminate, 2 weeks to reintroduce things slowly, and then we see what works, what doesn't work. That's the part of the work that I do with you. Yeah, totally reintroducing things. Is there any alcohol that is less acid making? It's not really the acid that's the problem. I mean, it is also, but the problem with alcohol is with the liver. Unfortunately, you can't go around the idea that alcohol is going to, you know, not be great for your liver. And also it's full of sugar. So you're talking double whammy here, double impact of alcohol. Let's put it that way. People who have worked with, who haven't been able to give up the alcohol, and we're talking, you know, there's different levels also of drinking. Yeah, the occasional glass of something is not going to be a massive problem, but if it's a daily drink, the progress is going to be extremely slow if you progress at all, unfortunately. So again, if you can at all get rid of it for 6 weeks, and this is why I'm here. This is what I do. I give you alternatives. You know, I'm here to offer the support and accountability so you don't fall off track. But 6 weeks is usually feasible for a lot of people. So yeah, it's usually the best way to get any progress. As I've actually stopped working with certain people, a few people over the years who absolutely could not get rid of the alcohol, but they were having it every day. And we're talking like half a bottle or a whole bottle of wine every night. And I can't work with people who do that, because it just, you know, you're just destroying the work you're doing in other areas. So it's just not going to work. I have to be honest. So yeah, that's one of the questions I would ask. If we talk on the phone, if we have a consultation, I will ask you how much alcohol, and, you know, if you're able to get rid of it for a while. Most people have done January, you know, dry January anyway. So yeah, you should be able to do it. Any other questions? So alcohol, to answer your question, it's not that it's acidic. Usually I would recommend more the gin and vodka because they're purer than fermented wines, for example. So there'll be a little bit less of a problem, but don't drink them with fizzy drinks. Don't drink them with tonic water or Coke, obviously, because that's gonna, you know, defeat the whole purpose. So with a little bit of water, with ice, you know, you might even be okay with a slice of lemon in there or lime, but that's about it. Ideally, you'd want to cut it out completely and then see if you can reintroduce it. See how you feel when we reintroduce it. Yeah. So nothing has to be off the menu forever. That's what people love when we work together. You know, I'm not one to say you have to become a complete teetotaler or whatever, even if I'm almost there myself. But it's not a must. Anyone else? Any other questions? You're welcome, Pat. Good luck with the investigations. You're so welcome, everyone. So welcome. This is my passion, can you tell? It's what I do day in, day out. I'm talking about guts. I talk about poo. I tell my kids, I talk about poo all day. What do you do, Mom? And people call me the gut whisperer. It must be for a reason. I don't know. It works. So it must be good. Oh, so there is I'm going to try and, oh, I'm not sure if I can add a file to this. I have a free cheat sheet, which I could put in here. I could add it to the chat, possibly. Let me check if I can just copy it. If I can just attach it.
If you're unable to do that, Nathalie, I'm happy to email everybody.
Yeah, I might do that. Or they can email me. If you want it, you can email me. That's a possibility as well. You've got my email address.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got
another way, but yeah, I'm happy to do that because I've got a list of everybody who's attended today.
Yeah. Yeah. So the tips, Beatrice, will be in the cheat sheet. I can't say that word, cheat sheet. It will be in there. There'll be more tips in there. Okay. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you, Pat. And thank you everyone for listening. It was really lovely to see you here. I hope I hear from you in the future. If you want some help, just don't hesitate. Okay. And I hope I've made you realize that there is hope. You can do a lot to get your gut back on track. So yeah, you don't have to suffer like that. Okay. Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Nathalie. That was wonderful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.